Tens of thousands of Palestinians have fled their homes in Gaza as Israel warns it is prepared to, quote, significantly widen its ground war. The Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said his forces were targeting the network of tunnels controlled by Hamas, striking more than 100 sites during the night. Hamas warned Israel would face dreadful consequences. Live now to our international editor, Jonathan Miller, who is in Gaza. Jonathan.
John, yes, indeed, the big news today here is the Israeli ground invasion, which began late last night. And you may be able to pick out over my shoulder here some of those Israeli parachute flares lighting up that eastern border just a couple of miles away. Now, some cynics may be tempted to question the timing of the Israeli invasion, coming as it did, just as world attention shifted towards those tragic events in Ukraine. But my job isn't to speculate, I'm here to report, and my report today starts with our day and what we saw on the ground. Now, the Israeli ground invasion made absolutely no difference to the intensity of the airstrikes coming in on Gaza. Now, as usual, I'm afraid my report comes with a health warning. Some viewers may find some of the scenes contained in it distressing.
What you're about to see is a little slice of everyday life in Gaza these days. The Israeli Defense Forces phoned in a warning, which perversely has drawn a crowd. 3 pilotless drones are circling overhead.
There's a house about 200 meters down the street here which has had a 10-minute warning to evacuate before an F-16 strike. This is so much part of daily life here that people are incredibly casual about it. And you can see why people are killed. There are cars still on the streets, people walking by. 266 Palestinians have now been killed in 10 days of bombing, 2,100 wounded. The bulk, civilians, many women and children among them.
A few moments later came the knock on the roof, a non-explosive warhead on a missile from a drone. It means leave, now. A few more minutes passed. People were still milling around down there. Then this. We neither saw nor heard the F-16. It flattened a 4-story block, but no one died, and the blast was very contained, apart from the pharmacy next door. The pharmacist said 50 people lived in the block, mostly children.
What to do with them? You are just supporting Israel against the Arabs, supporting Israel against the Palestinians. Are we terrorists here? This is the terrorism? Ours or the Israelis terrorism? This international terrorism. And Ban Ki-moon said to us, stop invasion Israel. Who invades us? Who invades the other? How many people are killed? Please send this message to the Western world, all the Western world, the United Nations. We are need protecting from the Israeli, from America, we are need protecting from them.
Israel stands accused of collective punishment. We'd seen Hamas flags on the street, and it's possible one of its members lived in the block, but 8 flats were destroyed, 8 families lost everything, 8 families left homeless. As the airstrikes continued unabated, Israeli tanks crashed into Gaza last night. The ground invasion was underway. At least 5 infantry brigades, backed by armour and artillery, led by combat engineers, 48,000 reservists called up. The IDF's expressed aim, achieving what they called operational control on the ground after 9 days of bombardment. The main target, Hamas and their tunnels. As troops moved in, 42 airstrikes and more than 300 shells fired from gunboats and tanks. The IDF said they hit 20 rocket launchers and 9 tunnels. Gaza's already overstretched hospitals now really feeling the strain. The father of 15-year-old Mohammed reeling from the enormity of what was happening.
We were seeking refuge at home. We were not firing rockets. Suddenly a shell came slamming into us.
A toddler arrives with suspected internal bleeding. More and more children are arriving at hospitals every day now. 5-year-old Raya has a fractured hand and possible fractured skull. Her father is beside himself.
We'd moved our neighbours, everyone, 70 or 80 people, into our house. All of them were looking for sanctuary when the Israelis hit.
Al-Wafa, Gaza's only hospital to specialise in brain and spinal injuries, came under bombardment for a third time. In the dark, without power, meaning the lifts didn't work, terrified patients were evacuated. The senior nurse from Al-Wafa attended Friday prayers at a mosque in the centre of town. Despite the threat of airstrikes, there was a strong turnout. They had a lot to pray for today. We found Ali Hassan, the nurse, who we'd met at Al-Wafa on Wednesday.
Why they are doing that, I don't know. I don't know what they are doing that. The hospital is destroyed. What is the benefit? It is a hospital. It is a civil place. It is just working with patients with disability. No other place will deal with those people with disability. Nobody.
Ali Hassan took us to the clinic to which the patients had been evacuated. Al-Wafa had taken more than 15 direct hits. Whole wards had been gutted by fire. These two men had suffered brain injuries from shrapnel just last week. In the women's ward, we found 16-year-old Aya, who I'd talked to 2 days ago. She has a spinal tumour and is paralysed from the waist down.
Just 20 minutes after we broke Ramadan fast last night, the shells hit. It was dark. There was no electricity. There was breaking glass and dust filled the building. We started to shout. I couldn't see any of my friends.
It is a crime of humanity. It's a crime that cannot be forgiven. It's a crime that cannot be erased from the history in Gaza here, and the continuous attack of the Israelis. Geneva law, United Nations law prohibit any parties to get any hospital or medical clinic or any organization that offer humanitarian services to the people to be used as a target.
Hamas has kept firing rockets into Israel today, but Israel's US-funded Iron Dome missile defense system made light work of them. Gaza does not have an Iron Dome, but still Hamas says, bring it on.
Well, I can just update you on some of the casualty statistics. The Palestinian health authorities releasing a short time ago a figure of 274 Palestinian deaths now, and 40% of those, it says, are women, children and the elderly. An Israeli soldier was killed today up on the Erez crossing up in the northeast there between Gaza and Israel. He was killed by light arms fire. He's the second Israeli to die, and the Israeli Defense Force is investigating whether his death may be involved with friendly fire.